The rugged mountains of northern Black Hollow had always been a place of mystery and sorrow. For decades, the once thriving villages scattered across its steep slopes had been ravaged by relentless wars and sinister forces lurking in the shadows. Amidst the ashes of bombed-out homes and shattered lives, the resilient villagers clung stubbornly to their ancestral lands, their spirits unyielding despite the constant threat of violence and despair. Among these villages was a small settlement known as Raven's Edge, named after the twisted black trees that clawed at the gray skies above. It was here that the story began, an eerie tale that would unravel secrets long buried beneath the earth and ignite a chain of events that no one could foresee. Elias Marlowe, a tall and gaunt man with deep-set eyes that flickered with both weariness and fierce determination, arrived at Raven's Edge atop a rattling, ancient truck. His hair, unkempt and peppered with gray, whipped wildly in the biting wind. He was a grave digger by trade, a man well acquainted with the secrets of the dead, yet even he felt a shiver run down his spine as he surveyed the desolate landscape before him. "Move quickly, men," Elias barked to the workers huddled nearby. "Today, this cursed ground will reveal its secrets." The workers, a mix of reluctant villagers and hired hands, exchanged nervous glances but nodded silently. They had heard the rumors of an unmarked grave recently unearthed during preparations for a new community center and whispers of a coffin unlike any other, decorated with strange symbols and sealed with an unnatural darkness. Among the group was Jonas, a young man barely out of his teens, with a sharp mind and a skeptical heart. Unlike most, Jonas did not fear the old tales or the so-called curse. He viewed the world with the pragmatic eyes of a scholar and found fascination where others saw only superstition. As the team began digging, the hard, dry earth soon gave way to a polished wooden surface, blackened and cold to the touch. Intricate carvings of serpents entwined with thorny vines spiraled along its edges. Elias knelt beside it, tracing the symbols with fingers calloused by years of labor. "This is no ordinary coffin," he muttered. "It reeks of old power, and blood." Suddenly, a crack echoed through the air as the lid shifted slightly, revealing a faint golden glow from within. The workers stepped back, their faces pale as the light danced eerily in the gathering dusk. Jonas, ever curious, leaned closer, his eyes wide with both dread and awe. "What is that?" "Some kind of energy." Elias's jaw tightened. "That, my boy, is the beginning of a nightmare." Word of the discovery spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of the village elder, Mariah Thorne. A woman of quiet strength and deep wisdom, Mariah had lived through decades of hardship and was no stranger to the supernatural tales that clung to the mountain like mist. She arrived at the site, her sharp eyes scanning the coffin and the anxious faces around it. "This coffin belongs to the House of Blackwood," she declared solemnly. "A family cursed by betrayal and bloodshed, their legacy sealed away to protect the living." The villagers gasped. The Blackwoods were an ancient clan, once revered and feared, whose downfall had been shrouded in mystery. No one dared to speak of them openly, fearing that even their name might summon the wrath of forgotten spirits. Mariah's voice grew grave. "The curse that binds this family is not just legend. It is a living darkness, and disturbing their rest could bring calamity upon us all. Despite the warnings, a mix of fear, greed, and curiosity stirred among the villagers. Among them was Garrett Hale, a ruthless businessman with ambitions to rebuild Raven's Edge into a prosperous town. He saw the coffin not as a curse but as a key to power and wealth. Gathering a small group, Garrett insisted they open the coffin fully. "We must know what lies within," he said coldly. "Only by understanding the past can we control the future." Late into the night, under a swollen moon and flickering torches, the coffin was pried open. Inside lay not a corpse, but an ancient tome wrapped in crimson silk, its pages pulsing with an unholy light. Jonas reached out, his fingers trembling as he lifted the book. The air around them thickened, heavy with whispered voices from beyond the grave. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the torches and plunging them into darkness. A guttural growl echoed from the forest, followed by the soft sound of footsteps approaching. Elias grabbed a lantern and shone its light toward the edge of the trees. Two glowing eyes stared back, reflecting a malevolence older than the mountains themselves. The nightmare had begun. The sudden darkness swallowed the small clearing, the only light a feeble lantern held by Elias that cast wavering shadows onto the dense forest edge. The glowing eyes that pierced the night belonged to a creature both ancient and unnatural, a hulking figure cloaked in darkness, its breath ragged and low, as if the woods themselves exhaled through it. Jonas froze, the ancient tome still clutched tightly in his trembling hands. His scholarly mind raced to make sense of the supernatural phenomena unfolding around them, but fear rooted him in place. Garrett, ever the bold one, stepped forward, brandishing a hunting knife and shouting to the others, "Stay close. Whatever that is, it won't stop until we're gone." Mariah stepped calmly beside Elias, her voice firm despite the terror that gripped the crowd. "This is no ordinary beast," she warned. "It is the guardian of the Blackwood curse, bound to protect the secrets within the coffin and the power within that book." As the creature advanced, the earth beneath them seemed to tremble faintly, as if the mountain itself was warning them to flee. Yet, none dared move, not out of courage, but paralyzing dread. Then, Elias raised the lantern higher, revealing the full form of the beast, tall, gaunt, with eyes like molten gold, its body wrapped in tattered black robes. A long scar ran across its face, a remnant of ancient battles forgotten by time. Suddenly, the creature's form flickered, revealing not a beast but a man, an echo of a long-lost Blackwood ancestor, cursed to eternal vigilance. His voice was a gravelly whisper, "Why have you disturbed my slumber? What madness brings you to the Blackwood's resting place?" Mariah stepped forward, holding out her hands in supplication. "We seek only to protect our village and uncover the truth." The coffin was unearthed by accident, and the curse threatens us all. The ghostly figure's eyes softened briefly. "The curse is real, but it is not mine to break. Only the one who bears the Blackwood bloodline can wield the tome's power and end the darkness." Jonas, feeling a surge of courage, spoke up. "Then perhaps the answer lies with the book itself. Let me study its pages." There may be knowledge that can save your village. Reluctantly, the spectral guardian stepped back, allowing Jonas a glimpse inside the tome's glowing script. As Jonas traced the ancient letters, he realized the book contained forbidden knowledge of arcane rituals and ancestral secrets that could unleash or quell the dark forces bound to the Blackwood. Legacy. Meanwhile, Garrett's ambition grew. He whispered to a few conspirators among the villagers, "If this power can be harnessed, Raven's Edge will rise from the ashes stronger and richer than ever. We must claim it." But danger lurked beneath the surface. Unseen by most, a shadowy figure watched from the tree line, a woman with eyes like ice and a smile as cold as winter's breath. Seraphina, a descendant of a rival clan long sworn to destroy the Blackwoods, had returned, driven by vengeance and dark magic. Her lips curled into a sinister grin. "The Blackwood curse is mine to break, or to wield." Back at the village, the elders debated feverishly. Some urged caution, fearing the curse's wrath, while others, driven by desperation, demanded the tome be used to protect their homes no matter the cost. As Jonas continued his study, he discovered that the tome required a ritual performed at the ancient Blackwood altar, a place hidden deep within the cursed forest, accessible only under the rare blood. Moon. Days passed, tensions mounting as the villagers prepared for the coming night. Elias trained the workers in defensive tactics, while Mariah sought forgotten chants and prayers from dusty manuscripts. Garrett, meanwhile, plotted in the shadows, ready to seize power at the first opportunity. On the eve of the blood moon, Jonas, Elias, and Mariah ventured into the forest, the ancient tome guiding their path. The air grew thick with anticipation, the forest alive with whispers carried on the wind. Suddenly, Seraphina appeared before them, her voice dripping with venom. "You dare seek the altar? You trespass on sacred ground." A fierce battle of wills and magic erupted beneath the crimson glow of the moon. Jonas's knowledge clashed with Seraphina's dark sorcery, Elias fought with his lantern and resolve, while Mariah's chants wove a shield of light. The ritual's success or failure would determine the fate of Raven's Edge and the lingering curse that haunted the Blackwood legacy. The crimson glow of the blood moon bathed the dense forest in an otherworldly light, casting long, eerie shadows that danced like phantoms between twisted ancient trees. Elias, Jonas, and Mariah moved cautiously along the narrow, overgrown path toward the hidden Blackwood altar, the ancient tome clutched tightly in Jonas's hands, its faint pulse matching the rapid beat of his heart. Behind them, the oppressive silence was shattered by a chilling laugh. Seraphina, the vengeful sorceress, emerged from the mist, her dark cloak swirling like a shadow detached from the earth. Her piercing icy eyes locked onto the trio. "You think you can perform the ritual without consequence? The curse feeds on your fear." Jonas swallowed his rising panic. "We have no choice. The village depends on this." Mariah raised her staff, inscribed with protective runes, and began chanting a song long forgotten, an ancient plea to the spirits of the forest to grant them passage and safeguard their mission. The air thickened as the spirits answered, the trees seeming to bend protectively around the small group. Elias, gripping his lantern tightly, led the way to a clearing where the altar stood, a monolithic slab etched with cryptic symbols, stained with the marks of countless rituals long past. Jonas opened the tome, revealing a map inscribed with glowing red ink that pointed toward specific stars aligned with the blood moon's trajectory. He read aloud the incantation, the words rolling off his tongue with growing confidence, each syllable seeming to awaken the very earth beneath their feet. But Serafina would not yield so easily. She summoned a tempest of shadowy tendrils, whipping them toward the group with furious force. Elias shielded Mariah with the lantern's light, which flared into a blinding blaze, scattering the darkness like a beacon. Jonas extended his hands over the altar, tracing the ritual circle with trembling fingers. As the final words left his lips, the tome burst into radiant light, illuminating the clearing with a power that seemed to tear the veil between worlds. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. From the soil, ghostly figures began to rise, ancestors of the Blackwood line, their faces serene but eyes glowing with spectral fire. They formed a protective barrier around the trio, their silent presence a testament to the bloodline's enduring legacy. Serafina's scream of rage echoed through the forest as her dark magic was repelled by the ancestral spirits. Defeated for now, she vanished into the shadows, vowing revenge. The ritual complete, the curse's hold over Raven's Edge began to lift. The air cleared, the oppressive gloom receding like a nightmare upon waking. Yet, in the depths of the forest, a faint pulse of darkness remained, a reminder that some secrets refused to die. As dawn broke over Raven's Edge, the villagers gathered to hear the news. Elias addressed them solemnly. The curse is weakened, but not gone. We must remain vigilant. Jonas looked to Mariah and Elias, a newfound resolve burning in his eyes. This is only the beginning. The Blackwood legacy still holds many secrets and dangers. The morning sun struggled to pierce the thick canopy of Raven's Edge, casting mottled light over the village still trembling from the night's ritual. Though the ancient curse had been weakened, a heavy tension lingered, as if the very earth whispered warnings no one dared ignore. Jonas sat outside the village hall, the ancient tome resting on his lap, its pages now dimmed but still humming faintly with residual power. His mind churned with questions that gnawed at his every thought. What deeper secrets did the Blackwood legacy hide? What price would they pay for meddling in the affairs of restless spirits? Elias approached silently, the weight of his years etched in the furrows of his face. The spirits protected us last night, he said, voice low but steady. But that protection is temporary. The darkness we stirred is old and cunning. Mariah joined them, clutching a bundle of herbs and scrolls, her sharp eyes glinting with urgency. The ritual was only the first step. The tome spoke of 3 seals, ancient wards set by the Blackwoods to contain a far greater evil. If any one of those seals breaks, all hell will break loose. Jonas leaned forward, tracing the faint map on the tome's final page. The first seal was here, beneath the altar. The others. Mariah unrolled a worn parchment depicting a fragmented map of the region. The second lies beneath the ruins of Thornhill Manor, east of here. The third, deepest in the forsaken marshes beyond the northern ridge. Their conversation was abruptly broken by a hurried voice. It was Lila, the village herbalist's daughter, breathless and wide-eyed. "There's been a disappearance. Old man Whitaker. He went into the forest last night and hasn't returned." Elias frowned. "Whitaker is no fool. If he vanished, something unnatural is at work." Without hesitation, the trio gathered a small search party, including Lila, and set off toward the dense woods near the village's edge. The air grew colder with every step, and an unsettling silence blanketed the trees. As they ventured deeper, Jonas's senses tingled. The magic here is distorted. Something is trying to hide itself. Suddenly, a guttural growl shattered the stillness. From behind a cluster of gnarled oaks, a monstrous figure lunged, half shadow, half man, eyes blazing with malevolence. It was a revenant, one of the Blackwood spirits corrupted by the curse, twisted into a creature of rage and pain. Elias raised his lantern, its light flaring, revealing the revenant recoiling with a shriek that echoed through the woods. Mariah whispered a binding chant, and glowing chains of light wrapped around the creature, freezing it in place. Jonas spotted something glinting on the revenant's torn cloak, a fragment of a medallion inscribed with the Blackwood family crest. "This is a sign," Jonas said grimly. "The curse is far from over." Pressing on, the group discovered an abandoned campsite, the remnants of Whitaker's fire still smoldering. Scattered belongings hinted at a struggle: broken branches, tufts of hair, and strange symbols carved into nearby trees. Lila shivered. "Those markings. They're wards against dark magic, but they've been broken." Elias knelt, inspecting the ground. He was taken. Or lured deeper. As dusk fell, they found themselves before an ancient stone archway concealed beneath creeping vines, the entrance to a forgotten catacomb rumored to be the resting place of the second Blackwood seal. Jonas's hand trembled as he opened the tome, whispering the incantation that would allow passage. The earth rumbled, and the archway shimmered, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling into darkness. One by one, they descended, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and forgotten sorrows. Shadows flickered on the walls, phantoms of the past or warnings to intruders. Deeper within, they encountered twisted murals depicting the Blackwood family's rise and fall, tales of betrayal, forbidden pacts, and sacrifices to contain a growing evil known only as the Shadow. Wraith. Mariah's voice was barely audible. The Shadow Wraith feeds on fear and despair. It was imprisoned by the seals. But something is weakening them. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked open. From the fissure, a chilling wail rose as the Shadow Wraith's essence seeped forth, a swirling mass of darkness and despair, eyes burning with malevolence. Jonas raised the tome, reciting an ancient binding spell. Light and shadow collided in a blinding flash as the group fought to contain the unleashed horror. Elias shouted, "We need to seal this place again before it consumes us all." Racing against time, they used the tome's knowledge to reinforce the seals, chanting the sacred rites that echoed through the catacombs. The shadow wraith's screams faded into whispers, then silence. Breathless and shaken, the group emerged into the cold night air, the forest eerily calm once more. But as Jonas closed the tome, a faint glow pulsed from within. An unbroken seal still awaited, and the true battle was just beginning. The sun dipped beneath the jagged peaks surrounding Raven's Edge, painting the sky with streaks of blood red and fiery orange, a fiery omen the villagers could no longer ignore. Despite the recent ritual success in containing the shadow wraith, an ominous chill had settled over the land, whispering of storms yet to come. Back in the village square, a tense meeting unfolded. The elders, clad in worn robes embroidered with ancient sigils, convened alongside Elias, Jonas, and Mariah. The ancient tome lay open on a wooden table, its pages flickering faintly as if alive. 3 seals remain, Elias reminded the assembly gravely. The one we just reinforced beneath the altar, the second hidden beneath Thornhill Manor, and the final, deepest in the forsaken marshes. Jonas added, each seal was crafted not only to imprison the shadow wraith but also to protect powerful relics, the Blackwood artifacts. If the seals break, these artifacts may fall into the wrong hands, magnifying the darkness. Suddenly, the crowd's murmur hushed as a figure stepped forward, a tall, cloaked stranger with piercing emerald eyes that seemed to see through the soul. "I am Alaric Voss," he declared with authority. "A seeker of lost truths and protector against the darkness you face. The Blackwood curse is but a symptom of a greater war between light and shadow." Mariah eyed Alaric suspiciously. "And why have you come now?" "Because the forces awakening beneath your feet threaten not just Raven's Edge, but all realms connected by the ancient ley lines," Alaric explained. "I have tracked Seraphina's movements. She is but a pawn in a game played by those who would see the world consumed by chaos." Whispers of fear and curiosity rippled through the crowd. Meanwhile, far from the village, Seraphina convened with a council of dark sorcerers deep within the forsaken marshes. The air was thick with malevolent energy as they plotted their next move. "We must break the final seal," Seraphina hissed, her voice dripping with malice. "Once the Blackwood artifacts are united, no force can stop us." A hooded figure stepped forward, revealing a face scarred by countless battles and eyes glowing with unnatural fire. "The shadow wraith grows stronger with each passing day. The time to act is now." Back in Raven's Edge, as night deepened, Jonas pored over the tome in Elias's workshop. Maps, scrolls, and ancient symbols surrounded him as he tried to decode the location of Thornhill Manor and the nature of the artifact it protected. Suddenly, a soft knock came at the door. Lila entered, her face pale and eyes wide. "There's been strange happenings at the edge of the forest. Lights flickering, shadows moving against the wind. And Whitaker's body was found." The room fell silent. Elias clenched his fists. No rest for the cursed. The next morning, a party formed to investigate Thornhill Manor's ruins. Among them were Jonas, Mariah, Elias, and Lila, joined now by Alaric Voss, whose knowledge of arcane lore promised to be invaluable. The journey was perilous. The path to Thornhill was littered with twisted roots that seemed to writhe like living snakes and eerie whispers that sought to unsettle their minds. As they approached the crumbling estate, a sudden downpour thundered from the sky, drenching the ruins in an ominous veil. Within the mansion's shattered walls, shadows flickered and coalesced into monstrous forms, remnants of ancient guardians bound by dark magic. Battling phantasmal creatures and deciphering cryptic puzzles left by the Blackwood ancestors, the group delved deeper into the manor's bowels. In the heart of the ruins, they discovered a chamber pulsating with dark energy. Upon an ornate pedestal lay the second Blackwood artifact, a crystalline orb swirling with shadows and light. Jonas reached for the orb, but a violent shockwave erupted, sending the group sprawling. As the dust settled, Serafina appeared in a swirl of dark mist, her eyes blazing with triumph. "You are persistent. But this ends now." A fierce confrontation ignited between the protectors and the sorceress, magic clashing in bursts of fire and shadow. Each spell cast seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. In the chaos, Alaric revealed a hidden power. An ancient sigil etched into his palm flared with brilliant light, forming a shield that repelled Serafina's attacks. But just as victory seemed within reach, the orb shattered, releasing a scream that echoed through the ruins and beyond. From the shattered orb emerged a shadow unlike any other, the true embodiment of the shadow wraith, towering and terrible, its eyes burning with the fury of 1,000 lost souls. The battle was only beginning. The monstrous figure that emerged from the shattered orb loomed over Thornhill Manor's ruins like a living nightmare. Its form shifted constantly, a writhing mass of shadows and flame, with eyes that burned like twin suns, piercing the souls of those who dared look upon it. Jonas, still sprawled on the cold stone floor, scrambled to his feet, clutching the ancient tome. His fingers trembled, but his voice rang out with newfound determination, "We must bind it again. The seals, there's still one left, but we need the ritual." Elias tightened his grip on the lantern, the flickering light barely holding back the suffocating darkness. "If that thing breaks free completely, this entire region, no, the world will drown in shadow." Mariah's chants filled the chamber, weaving a protective barrier of light. Lila moved swiftly, scattering the sacred herbs that emitted a fragrance sharp and pure, cutting through the stale air of despair. Alaric stepped forward, his palm glowing fiercely, summoning ancient sigils to trap the creature. But the shadow wraith was no ordinary foe. It laughed a sound like grinding bones and tearing metal, and lashed out with tendrils of pure darkness, shattering the sigils and sending the group reeling. As the battle raged, a sudden burst of light erupted from the woods outside. The village's defenders, alerted by the tremors and shadows, had arrived armed with relics blessed by Mariah's ancestors. Garrett Hale, the ambitious businessman turned reluctant hero, led the charge. Though he had once sought the Blackwood artifacts for power, the true horror awakened had changed his purpose. Together, the villagers and the group fought back the shadow wraith's advance, pushing it toward the old chapel at the village's edge, the site of the final seal. But the wraith's power was growing. Its dark tendrils snaked through the trees, pulling shadows from the very souls of the villagers, twisting them into monstrous forms under its control. Jonas realized the final seal was not just a physical ward, it was a living bond between the villagers and the land, fueled by sacrifice and unity. Desperate, he proposed a risky plan: we must offer ourselves to the seal. Only through a ritual of blood and spirit can the wraith be bound forever. Elias nodded grimly. The ritual demands a guardian, a vessel to hold the seal's power. Someone must sacrifice their freedom to become the eternal sentinel. Mariah's eyes locked onto Jonas. You carry the knowledge. The burden falls to you. Before he could respond, a sudden scream tore through the night. Lila was seized by a shadow beast, her screams echoing through the forest. Garrett and Elias rushed to her aid, but the wraith's influence spread too fast. In that moment, a blinding flash illuminated the chapel. The ancient altar pulsed with energy as the last seal stirred, beckoning its guardian. Jonas felt a strange pull within him, a merging of fear, hope, and destiny. With a final glance at his friends, he stepped into the altar's light. The radiant light from the altar enveloped Jonas, seeping into his very bones. His heartbeat echoed like thunder as the ancient magic coursed through him, intertwining his essence with the final Blackwood seal. The villagers watched with bated breath, some with hope, others with fear, as the fate of Raven's Edge now rested on the shoulders of one young man. Inside Jonas's mind, a storm raged. Visions of the Blackwood ancestors flooded his consciousness, heroes and villains alike, each locked in eternal struggle against the shadow wraith. Their voices whispered guidance and warnings, but also the crushing weight of sacrifice. Outside the chapel, the battle intensified. Elias and Garrett rallied the villagers, fighting desperately to hold back the hordes of shadow beasts. Mariah's voice rose in a crescendo of incantations, her magic weaving shields and healing the wounded. Lila, still ensnared in the grasp of the wraith's darkness, struggled against the corrupting force threatening to consume her soul. Her cries pierced the night, a beacon of pain and resistance. Jonas's body trembled as the seal's power awakened within him. His vision blurred, and he saw through the eyes of the ancient guardians past battles, lost loves, and unbroken vows etched into the fabric of time. Suddenly, the shadow wraith's voice echoed in his mind, a cruel and chilling promise: you may bind me, but your soul will be mine to command. Your sacrifice will feed the darkness forever. Summoning every shred of courage, Jonas pushed back, anchoring himself to the memories of his friends and the village. I am no pawn, he whispered fiercely. I am the guardian. The altar blazed with light as Jonas's form shifted, his body glowing with an ethereal aura, eyes shining like stars. The seal's magic flowed through him, mending the broken wards and weaving a barrier of pure energy around Raven's Edge. At that moment, a great roar erupted as the shadow wraith unleashed its final assault. Tendrils of shadow surged toward the altar, desperate to corrupt the seal before it could solidify. Elias stepped forward, brandishing his lantern like a sword of light. Hold the line. For Raven's Edge. Garrett, wielding an ancient spear blessed by Mariah, struck down the nearest shadow beast, his resolve hardened by the villagers' plight. Mariah's chants became a powerful anthem, drawing energy from the very earth beneath them. Inside the chapel, Jonas extended his hands, weaving the final threads of the ritual. His voice rang out, commanding the forces of light and shadow to cease their endless war. With a thunderous crack, the seal locked into place, binding the shadow wraith once more, this time within Jonas's very soul. The ground stilled. The shadows receded. The village was saved for now. But as Jonas collapsed, drained but unbroken, he knew his life had irrevocably changed. He was no longer just a man, he was the eternal sentinel, the bridge between light and darkness, destined to guard the fragile peace for all time. The dawn broke over Raven's Edge, casting soft light over the village that had just survived a night of unimaginable darkness. Yet, despite the fragile calm, the air was thick with an unspoken tension. Jonas lay inside the chapel's inner sanctum, his body pale and still, but his spirit bound forever to the ancient seal. Mariah sat beside him, her fingers gently brushing his forehead, whispering prayers that mingled hope and sorrow. Elias stood guard at the door, eyes scanning the horizon, wary of any lingering threats. The villagers gathered outside, their faces a mosaic of relief and fear. They celebrated the survival of their homes but mourned the loss of their friend's former life. Garrett approached Elias quietly. He's changed. Not just by the seal, but by what it demands. How long can he hold this burden? Elias shook his head. No one knows. The seal's power is ancient, and the price is steep. The sentinel is both protector and prisoner. Inside Jonas's mind, a tempest churned. Bound to the shadow wraith's essence, he was trapped in a perpetual battle, a silent war waged within his soul. Memories of his past life blurred with visions of ancient battles and cryptic prophecies. A whisper echoed through his consciousness, a voice both familiar and alien. You are the key, Jonas. The balance between light and shadow. Fail, and darkness will consume all. Jonas struggled to hold onto his identity, to the love of his village and friends. The pain of solitude was immense, yet he found solace in the faint warmth of their memories. Days passed, and the village began to rebuild, but strange occurrences unsettled the people. Crops withered overnight, shadows moved with intent, and whispers of unseen eyes watching grew louder. One evening, Mariah called a secret meeting in the chapel. The seal is strong, but not unbreakable, she warned. Serafina has not been idle. She seeks the last Blackwood artifact, the Shadow Mirror. If she claims it, the seal will shatter. Jonas's eyes fluttered open, and with a voice strained but resolute, he spoke. The mirror lies beyond the forsaken marshes, guarded by trials older than time itself. Garrett clenched his fists. Then we must stop her before she reaches it. Elias nodded. But the marshes are cursed. Many who enter never return. Lila stepped forward, her youthful determination shining. Let me go. I know the land. I can navigate the marshes. Jonas's gaze softened. You are brave, but the curse is not just of this world. It will test your soul. Despite their fears, A group formed: Jonas, now partly Sentinel, Mariah, Garrett, Lila, and Alaric Voss. They prepared to journey into the forsaken marshes, carrying the hopes of Raven's Edge. Before leaving, Elias presented Jonas with an ancient amulet, carved with protective runes. This will help shield you from the Wraith's influence. But remember, the greatest battle is within. The journey was arduous. The marshes swallowed their footprints, and a thick mist cloaked their path. Strange creatures lurked in the shadows, phantoms born of twisted magic and sorrow. As they ventured deeper, the group faced visions of their deepest fears. Lila saw her family lost to darkness, Garrett confronted ghosts of his past greed, Mariah battled doubts of her faith. Jonas, battling his own internal demons, kept the group anchored. We must face the trials not as individuals, but as one. At the heart of the marsh, they found the shadow mirror, a swirling, obsidian portal framed by thorn vines pulsating with dark energy. Guarding the mirror was a spectral knight, clad in armor black as void, wielding a sword forged from pure shadow. The knight's voice echoed, "Only the worthy may claim the mirror. Prove your soul's strength, or be consumed." Each member of the group faced harrowing tests, visions that challenged their hopes, fears, and loyalties. Jonas confronted his own shadow self, a twisted reflection embodying all the despair the Wraith sought to spread. With fierce resolve, Jonas embraced his pain, transforming shadow into light, breaking the mirror's curse from within. The mirror dissolved into shards of pure energy, which Jonas absorbed into himself, gaining power, but further binding his soul to the eternal struggle. Exhausted but victorious, the group began their journey home, knowing the war was far from over. The return journey from the forsaken marshes was marked by silence and exhaustion. The once vibrant group, now worn thin by trials both external and internal, moved slowly through the dense forests that bordered Raven's Edge. The shattered remnants of the shadow mirror's energy still pulsed faintly within Jonas, a constant reminder of the burden he bore. Jonas felt the weight of his new powers pressing against his very soul. Each step home was accompanied by whispered voices, some urging him forward, others sowing seeds of doubt and fear. The boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred as the ancient battle between light and shadow played out within him. Mariah observed Jonas closely. "The power you carry is immense, but dangerous. It will test your will like never before." Her eyes held a mix of concern and determination. "We must prepare, for Seraphina grows stronger, and her forces are already moving." Garrett, scarred from the battles past but hardened like forged steel, adjusted the strap of his spear. "We can't let her reach the last seal. If she does, Raven's Edge will fall into eternal darkness." Lila, ever the bright spirit despite the horrors she witnessed, nodded. "We need allies. The village alone won't stand against what's coming." Elias, who had remained in the village to protect those left behind, awaited their return with a mix of hope and dread. When the group finally arrived, the village was already on edge. More signs of the curse's lingering presence had appeared: livestock found dead with no cause, eerie lights dancing near the forests edge, and strange symbols scorched into the ground. As the sun dipped below the horizon, The elders summoned the villagers to the great hall. Alaric stood beside them, his presence commanding respect. "There is an ancient prophecy," he began, "that foretells a time when the Blackwood bloodline must unite with others of power to face the darkness. We must seek out the other descendants." A hush fell over the room. Many had heard whispers of lost heirs scattered across the land's guardians who could tip the balance in this war. Jonas felt a spark of hope. "If we can find these heirs, perhaps we can form a coalition strong enough to banish the Shadow Wraith forever." Plans were quickly made. Lila would return to her village to gather information on nearby clans, while Elias would prepare the village's defenses. Garrett and Mariah set out to consult ancient texts and artifacts that might reveal clues about the heirs and their locations. Meanwhile, Jonas retreated to the chapel's sanctum, grappling with the shadow within. Late into the night, his mind wandered through visions of forgotten realms and faces he did not recognize, echoes of ancestors and battles long past. The seal's power called to him, sometimes soothing, sometimes demanding. One night, a sudden vision struck, an image of a distant mountain temple, cloaked in mist and silence. Within its halls lay the final piece of the Blackwood legacy, the Heartstone, a gem said to hold the essence of life and light. If found, it could strengthen the seals and grant Jonas the strength to contain the Wraith without losing himself. With this revelation, Jonas knew his journey was far from over. Days passed with frantic activity. Lila returned with news of a hidden clan, the Vayrons, whose members were rumored to possess ancient magic tied to the Blackwood bloodline. Garrett uncovered a map pointing toward the mountain temple, buried deep within treacherous terrain. As preparations were made for the next expedition, Seraphina's influence grew darker. Her agents infiltrated nearby villages, sowing discord and despair. Villagers vanished, taken to dark rituals meant to summon the Wraith's full power. One chilling night, a messenger arrived breathless at Raven's Edge. The village of Green Hollow had been consumed by shadow, its people either missing or transformed into creatures of darkness. Elias tightened his grip on his lantern, the flames flickering ominously. "We must act swiftly. If the darkness spreads, no village will be safe." Jonas, standing before the ancient altar, steeled himself. The fate of countless lives now depended on his strength, his resolve, and the allies he had yet to find. As the blood moon approached once more, the final battle loomed on the horizon, an epic struggle where light, shadow, sacrifice, and hope would collide in ways none could foresee. The night was alive with a sinister energy as the blood moon rose high over Raven's Edge, casting an eerie crimson glow that bathed the village and surrounding forests in unsettling light. The villagers moved with hurried steps and whispered prayers, preparing for the ordeal that was to come, the final confrontation with the forces of shadow. Jonas stood at the altar's edge, the ancient tome resting beside him. His eyes, now glowing faintly with the seal's power, scanned the horizon. The shadows deepened unnaturally, shifting and coalescing into forms both grotesque and terrible. The Shadow Wraith, though bound, had begun to manifest more fully, its presence bleeding into the world. Mariah approached, her face solemn but resolute. "This night will decide our fate." The ritual to reinforce the seal and banish the wraith once and for all must be completed before dawn. Garrett readied his spear, etched with sacred runes that shimmered in the moonlight. Seraphina's forces will not let us succeed. She has summoned an army of darkness from the depths of the forsaken marshes. Lila, standing near the village's edge, tightened her grip on a small, intricately carved charm, a protective talisman from the Veyron clan, rumored to shield the bearer from dark magic. Suddenly, a thunderous roar shattered the silence as shadow beasts poured from the forest like a living tide. The battle erupted with fury, the villagers and their protectors fighting desperately to hold the line. Jonas focused on the ritual, chanting the ancient incantations, his voice weaving the delicate balance between light and shadow. Each word summoned radiant energy that rippled through the village, pushing back the encroaching darkness. But Seraphina herself appeared, her form swirling with malevolent power. "Fools," she hissed, her eyes blazing. "You cannot contain what was never meant to be contained." She unleashed a wave of dark magic that shattered protective wards and sent villagers flying. Garrett lunged, spear flashing, but was repelled by a shield of shadow. Mariah countered with a blast of light, but Seraphina's laughter echoed as she vanished into the shadows. Jonas felt the seal's power within him waver, the shadow creeping closer to consuming his very essence. Desperation fueled his resolve. He called upon the ancestors, their voices rising in a chorus of strength and guidance. The villagers rallied, their unified spirit weaving a tapestry of hope that lit the darkness like a beacon. As the ritual neared its climax, a figure emerged from the shadows, a young woman with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, her presence commanding and ethereal. "I am Selene," she declared. "A descendant of the Veyron clan and bearer of the Heartstone's blessing." With a graceful movement, Selene raised the Heartstone, which emitted a brilliant light that pierced the shadows, strengthening Jonas's seal and driving back the wraith's form. Seraphina screamed in fury as the shadows recoiled, her form dissipating like smoke in the wind. The first rays of dawn broke over Raven's Edge, bathing the village in golden light. The shadow wraith was banished, but the cost was great. Jonas collapsed, his connection to the seal forever altering his existence. Selene knelt beside him, her touch gentle but filled with power. Mariah and Garrett tended to the wounded, while Lila looked toward the horizon, knowing the peace they had fought for was fragile. The ancient battle had ended, but the echoes of darkness remained. Jonas's journey as the Sentinel was only beginning. Raven's Edge had breathed a sigh of relief with the dawn, but peace was only a fragile veil stretched thin over a deeper darkness. Jonas, now bound eternally as the Sentinel, found himself at a crossroads between two worlds, the realm of the living and the shadowed echoes of the past. Though the shadow wraith had been banished, its influence lingered in the land's whispers and the hearts of those touched by its curse. Seraphina's disappearance was no victory but a retreat, her thirst for power had only grown darker. Jonas struggled with the duality within him, the seal's power granting him strength but also feeding the shadow lurking in his soul. Nightmares plagued his sleep, visions of ancient betrayals and forgotten wars stretching across centuries. One night, as a cold wind swept through the chapel, an ethereal figure appeared in a shimmer of silver light. Selene, the Veyron heiress, had come not just as an ally but as a guide into the depths of the Blackwood legacy. "You carry more than the seal," she said softly. "The blood of the Blackwoods courses through you, but so too does the burden of their sins." Together, they delved into the tome's hidden pages, uncovering a forgotten prophecy, that a great darkness would rise again, not from outside, but from within, a shadow born from the betrayal of one of the Blackwood line, a secret long buried. Meanwhile, in the village, unrest simmered. Some feared Jonas's transformation, whispering that his soul was slipping away. Others saw him as a savior, a beacon in a world growing darker. Garrett, feeling the strain of leadership, sought counsel from Elias and Mariah. "We must unite the scattered clans, build alliances strong enough to face the shadows rising." Lila returned from scouting missions with troubling news. Villages near the northern border were falling to strange afflictions, people disappearing or turning into husks consumed by shadow. The group realized that Seraphina's influence was spreading through an ancient network of dark magic, a web that reached far beyond their village. Jonas and Selene prepared for a journey to the ancient Blackwood crypts, hidden deep within the mountains, where the root of the curse might be severed. Before departing, Jonas visited the villagers, offering words of hope and warning. "The battle is not over. Darkness may rise, but as long as we stand together, light will endure." As the moon rose high, Jonas and his companions set forth, guided by Selene's knowledge and the strength of their resolve. But in the shadows, Seraphina watched, her smile cold and cruel. "They think the battle is won. But the true darkness has only just begun." The air was thick with the scent of burning wood and ancient magic. Raven's Edge stood at the precipice of oblivion as the final battle loomed, a clash not only of swords and spells, but of wills, hopes, and destinies. Jonas, the eternal sentinel, felt the full weight of his burden like never before. The power of the Blackwood seal coursed through him, but so did the creeping shadow of the wraith that threatened to consume his soul. His eyes burned with determination and sorrow. Beside him stood Selene, radiant and fierce, the Heartstone's blessing glowing against the darkened sky. Mariah's chants echoed through the valley, weaving a tapestry of light that fought back the encroaching shadows. Garrett led the village warriors, their faces resolute but weary. Lila and Elias prepared the sacred wards and ancient artifacts, the last defenses against the growing darkness. From the depths of the forsaken marshes, a storm of shadows rose, led by Seraphina herself, more powerful and twisted than ever. Her laughter was a twisted melody, a siren's call to despair. The battle erupted with the fury of a tempest. Spells collided with claws, steel met shadow, and the cries of the fallen echoed across the land. Jonas stood at the heart of the fray, the seal blazing like a beacon. Seraphina confronted him, their powers clashing in a brilliant dance of light and darkness. "Your time is over, Jonas," she hissed, eyes blazing with fury. "Surrender your soul, and I will spare your village." Jonas's reply was a roar of defiance. "I am the Sentinel. Your darkness will never claim this world." In the final moments, Jonas summoned the combined strength of the ancestors and the love of his friends. The seal flared, engulfing Seraphina and the wraith in a radiant cage of light. But the victory was not without sacrifice. Jonas's physical form faded, his essence becoming one with the seal itself, a guardian not bound by flesh, but by spirit. Selene knelt beside the altar, tears shining like stars. He gave everything for us. His light will guide us always. The village mourned but celebrated, knowing their sentinel's sacrifice had saved them all. Years passed, and the tales of Jonas, the eternal guardian, became legend. Raven's Edge flourished, a beacon of hope in a world forever shadowed by the memory of darkness. And sometimes, when the blood moon rose, the villagers swore they saw a faint glow at the chapel's altar, a silent promise that as long as there was light, the sentinel would watch over them. Title: The Eternal Sentinel, Shadows of Raven's Edge. Description: In the remote village of Raven's Edge, an ancient evil known as the Shadow Wraith awakens, threatening to engulf the world in darkness. Bound by fate and the power of the Blackwood Seal, young Jonas must become the eternal sentinel, guardian of the fragile barrier between light and shadow. Joined by allies like the fierce Veyron heiress Selene, the wise sorceress Mariah, and the steadfast warrior Narrated, Jonas embarks on a perilous journey through cursed marshes, haunted forests, and forgotten temples to uncover lost legacies and confront the malevolent sorceress Seraphina. As battles rage and secrets unfold, the villagers fight not only for survival but for hope, unity, and the chance to banish the darkness once and for all. But the greatest challenge lies within. The sentinel must grapple with the shadow lurking inside his own soul, sacrificing everything to save the world he loves. A tale of sacrifice, courage, and ancient magic, The Eternal Sentinel, Shadows of Raven's Edge weaves a gripping story of light battling darkness, a story where legends are born, and heroes are forged. In the fires of destiny.